Arun was a quiet worker on the edge of the mining outpost. The outpost floated above a rocky moon that circled a cold red star. From far away the place looked like a cluster of metal boxes, but inside those walls life was always busy. Machines hummed, drills roared, and people moved from one duty to another. Arun was one of the many technicians, yet he never tried to stand out. He liked silence, tools, and the feeling of his hands fixing broken things. Most days were the same. He cleaned filters, repaired loaders, and patched leaks in the heavy pipes that carried air and water through the outpost. The other workers laughed at him for being slow, but Arun never minded. He believed that care was more important than speed. A loose bolt might seem small, but if left alone, it could cause trouble for everyone. One morning the alarm sounded. A transport ship was docking. Arun stopped his work and watched from the open platform as the craft descended through thin clouds of dust. Its metal hull was scorched in places, showing it had seen combat. Soldiers were coming. He had heard rumors that warriors from the Alliance would pass through, but he never thought he would meet them up close. When the ship's doors opened, he saw them. Tall figures stepped out, covered in heavy armor that shimmered like dark stone. Each soldier moved with discipline, scanning every corner of the outpost. Among them was one who walked at the front. Her armor was larger, marked with silver lines that ran across the chest and shoulders. She removed her helmet, and for the first time Arun saw her face. Her name was Rin. She was not human. Her eyes were golden, her skin faintly patterned, and her voice carried strength even when she spoke in a calm tone. The outpost commander greeted her with respect, explaining that the soldiers would rest here before moving to another battlefield. Arun listened from the side, keeping his distance, yet something about her made him curious. The soldiers spread through the outpost, preparing their gear and tending to wounds. Arun returned to his repair bay, expecting his day to be the same as usual. But not long after, one of the officers came to him with a request. Rin's armor had been damaged in a skirmish, and they needed it cleaned and repaired. Arun was chosen because he was known for patience, and the others were too nervous to touch armor belonging to someone of her rank. When he entered the small chamber where the armor was kept, he felt a chill. The plates lay across the table, heavy and marked with burns. Scratches ran along the surface, and dents showed where powerful strikes had landed. Arun put on his gloves and began working. He used simple brushes, polish, and fine tools, the same way he would handle delicate machinery. Rin entered the chamber without sound. Arun noticed her presence only when the air seemed heavier. She watched as he wiped the armor carefully, rubbing the cloth in slow circles until the burn marks faded. He did not hurry. He checked each joint, each seal, each etch. To him, the armor was not just metal. It was something that protected a living being. At first Rin said nothing. She leaned against the wall, arms crossed, her golden eyes following every move. Most humans avoided looking at her for too long, but Arun did not seem afraid. He focused only on the task. He even whispered small notes to himself about cracks and loose fittings, as if he were speaking to the armor. Hours passed in silence until the armor began to shine again. Arun set down his tools, stretching his fingers. That was when Rin finally spoke. "You treat it as if it were alive," she said, her voice steady. Arun turned to her, unsure if she was testing him. He gave a small nod. "It keeps you alive. That makes it important." Her brow lifted. Among her people, armor was respected, but it was also seen as replaceable. Soldiers wore many sets during their lifetimes, and each one was discarded when it broke. She expected humans to think the same. Yet this young technician spoke differently. "Why such care for what can be replaced?" she asked. Arun looked at the armor again. "Because while it is here, it matters. If it protects you, then every scratch tells a story. If I clean it, if I mend it, then maybe it lasts longer. Maybe it keeps you safe one more time. Rin studied him. His hands were rough from tools, his clothes plain, his body far smaller than hers. He was not strong, not trained for battle, yet he spoke with quiet certainty. For a moment she did not know how to respond. Arun did not wait for praise. He returned to his work, fastening the last piece and checking the seals twice before stepping back. "It is ready," he said. Rin approached the table and lifted one of the heavy plates. It was smooth, polished, and stronger now than before. She placed it back down, her gaze resting on him longer than usual. "You are different from the others," she said finally. Arun only gave a small shrug. "I only do my work." Rin turned, placing her helmet under her arm. She walked to the door but paused before leaving. Her golden eyes glowed faintly under the light. "You may not see it, but your way of work is not ordinary." Then she stepped out, her footsteps echoing in the hall. Arun stood alone in the chamber. He touched the cleaned armor once more, feeling the smooth surface beneath his gloves. To him, it was only natural to care for something that shielded another life. He did not know that his quiet act had already planted a question in the mind of a warrior, one that would change both their paths. The next day on the outpost began like any other. The miners went to the drills, the engineers checked machines, and the guards walked their rounds. Arun sat at his workbench, repairing a broken air regulator. His hands moved with slow rhythm, tightening screws and replacing worn seals. The steady sound of tools comforted him. He liked when the world outside was noisy but his own space was quiet. Yet his thoughts were not as calm as his hands. His mind kept drifting back to the armored warrior he had met the night before. He remembered her golden eyes, her tall figure, and the way she studied him as though trying to understand something hidden. Most of all he remembered her words, "You are different from the others." He did not know what she meant, but those words followed him into his sleep and now into his morning. While he worked, the sound of heavy boots echoed in the corridor. The door slid open, and Rin stepped inside. Her presence filled the small room like a storm entering still air. She wore her armor again, polished and repaired, fitting her form with strength and grace. The silver lines across the plates gleamed under the lights. Arun rose to his feet out of habit, setting down his tool. "Do you need more repairs?" he asked. "No," she said. Her voice was calm but carried weight. "I came for something else." Arun waited, unsure what she wanted. Rin stepped closer, looking around the room as if to measure the place where he spent his hours. Her gaze returned to him. "Yesterday you worked on my armor. You treated it with care unlike any I have seen. I want to know why." Arun hesitated. For him, the answer felt simple, but explaining it to her seemed harder. "It protects you," he said at last. "If it keeps you safe, then it is precious." Rin tilted her head slightly. "Precious," she repeated, as if testing the word on her tongue. "Among my kind, armor is a tool. We respect it, yes, but we replace it without thought when it is broken. We do not call it precious." "Why do you?" Arun thought for a moment. He picked up the air regulator he had been fixing and held it in his hands. "This machine is not alive. It does not think. But it carries air, and that air keeps miners breathing. Without it, lives would end. That makes it more than metal. To me, anything that guards life deserves care." Rin studied him with an unreadable expression. He was small, fragile, unarmed. Yet the way he spoke was steady. She wondered if humans all thought this way, or if he was different even among them. She asked, "And what of the one inside the armor? Do you see them as precious too?" Arun met her eyes. For a moment the silence in the room grew heavy. "Of course," he said quietly. "Every life is precious." The words struck her deeper than she expected. In her people's culture, Soldiers were raised to fight, to die if needed. Individual life was not often spoken of with such value. Yet this human, who had never seen battle, spoke as if the idea was natural truth. She turned away slightly, as though to hide her thoughts. "You speak with boldness for one who has not fought," she said. Arun gave a faint smile. "Maybe so. But I have seen how fragile things are. Machines, people, even strong walls can fall apart. That is why I believe we must care for what we have while it lasts." For the first time, Rin felt uncertain. She was used to clear orders, to the certainty of battle. Here was a simple worker, and his quiet words unsettled her more than any enemy blade. Before she could reply, the alarm sirens began to wail. Red lights flashed across the walls. Arun looked up, startled. The voice of the outpost commander came through the intercom. "Attention all personnel. Raider ships approaching. Prepare for defense." Rin immediately straightened, the moment of calm broken. She placed her helmet on, sealing it with a hiss. "Stay here," she ordered Arun. Her tone left no room for argument. She strode out of the chamber, her steps quick and strong. Arun stood frozen for a moment. He heard the echo of rushing boots and the distant roar of defense cannons firing. His heart pounded. He wanted to obey, but he also felt something pull inside him. The outpost was his home, and he could not just hide while others risked themselves. He gathered what tools he could carry in a small pack and stepped out into the corridor. Smoke already drifted through the air from a damaged power conduit. Workers were running to shelters while soldiers rushed toward the outer gates. Arun moved against the crowd, heading for the repair bay near the front lines. Outside the walls, the raiders' ships fired bright streaks of plasma. The shields of the outpost glowed under impact. Rin and her squad stood at the gates, forming a wall of armored defenders. Their weapons lit the air, returning fire with sharp precision. Arun saw them from a distance, his breath catching when he spotted Rin in the center. Her armor shone under the red sky, each movement swift and powerful. As the fight raged, one of the defense cannons sputtered and died. Its power cells had overheated. Arun knew the soldiers depended on it to keep the raiders back. Without it, the wall would not hold. He rushed toward the cannon, ducking behind crates as stray blasts struck the ground. His hands shook, but he forced himself forward. Reaching the machine, he opened the panel and pulled out the burned cells. Heat scorched his fingers, but he replaced them with spares from his pack. Sparks flew, but the cannon roared back to life, sending a storm of fire into the sky. The soldiers cheered, and the raiders began to pull back under the renewed defense. From the corner of her eye, Rin saw him. The human technician crouched beside the cannon, face streaked with sweat and dust, yet refusing to retreat. For a moment she almost forgot the battle around her. She realized that his words were not just talk. He truly lived them. Fragile as he was, he chose to act, to risk himself for others. When the raiders finally retreated, leaving the field scattered with smoke and debris, the outpost erupted in relief. Soldiers lowered their weapons, workers emerged from shelters, and the commander gave orders to repair damage. Rin walked through the crowd until she found Arun, still catching his breath beside the smoking cannon. She towered over him, her armor scarred once more. "You disobeyed," she said, her voice low but firm. Arun looked up, tired but steady. "I only did what I could." For a moment she said nothing. Then she leaned closer, her golden eyes sharp. "Why do you treat me, my armor, this outpost, as if they are precious? You risked your life without thought." Arun wiped dust from his face. His voice was soft but clear. "Because they are. Because you are." Rin stared at him, her heart caught between confusion and something she could not name. No one had ever spoken to her like that. She was a soldier, trained for war, respected for her rank but never called precious. The word echoed inside her as if it belonged to a place she had forgotten. She straightened, turning away before anyone could see the change in her expression. "You are reckless," she said, though her tone carried less sharpness than before. "But perhaps not useless." Arun gave a small smile, then bent to check the cannon again. Rin walked back to her squad, but the question still burned in her thoughts, stronger than before. Why does he see me this way? Why does he treat me as if I matter more than the battle itself? The attack on the outpost had passed, but its shadow still lingered. Smoke clung to the walls, and scorch marks stained the ground. Workers repaired broken panels while soldiers patrolled the perimeter, keeping watch for another strike. The people whispered about how close the raiders had come, but they also whispered about the quiet technician who had run into danger. Arun did not like the attention, yet he continued his work as if nothing had changed. Rin, however, did not forget. She had seen him racing through smoke with no armor, no weapon, only tools in his hands. She had watched him bring the cannon back to life when even trained soldiers thought it lost. His courage was not loud, yet it carried weight. That image stayed with her, even as she tried to push it aside. 2 days later, the outpost commander summoned Rin and her squad. Arun happened to be in the repair bay nearby, fixing a cracked water pipe, when he overheard the announcement. The commander explained that intelligence had revealed a hidden raider camp in the rocky canyons not far from the outpost. Supplies stolen from nearby colonies were being stored there. If the camp was not destroyed, the raiders would regroup and strike again with even greater force. Rin stood tall as she accepted the mission. Her squad would move through the canyon under cover of night, locate the camp, and clear it. The commander added that the outpost had no spare engineers to accompany them, but one would be needed to manage power packs and communication gear. Rin's golden eyes turned slightly toward Arun, who stood in the corner, listening. She remembered his quick hands and steady nerves. Without hesitation, she said, "Take him." The commander looked surprised. "He is a technician, not a soldier." "He will not fight," Rin replied. "But he will keep our equipment alive, and he will not break under fear." Arun blinked, unsure what to say. He had not expected to be chosen, yet part of him knew he could not refuse. He gave a small nod. "I will go." That night, as the sky over the moon turned dark and the red star dipped low, the squad prepared for departure. Rin checked her armor piece by piece, her hands moving with precision. She glanced at Arun, who struggled to fasten the straps of a light utility vest given to him. He carried no weapon, only a small pack of tools, spare cells, and a communicator. "You are nervous," she said as she approached him. "A little," Arun admitted. "But I will manage." Rin studied his face for a moment. "Stay close to me," she said firmly. "You are not here to prove yourself. You are here to survive." Arun gave a faint smile. "I thought I was here to keep things working." Her eyes narrowed, but she did not correct him. She turned away, hiding the small stir of respect she felt. The squad moved out in silence, their boots crunching softly over stone. The canyon stretched before them like a scar across the moon's surface. Jagged cliffs rose high on both sides, casting deep shadows. The air was thin and dry, carrying only the whisper of wind. Arun walked in the middle of the formation, surrounded by armored figures. He felt small among them, but the steady glow of Rin's silver-marked armor ahead of him gave him strange comfort. Hours passed as they advanced deeper into the canyon. At last they reached a ridge overlooking a valley. Below, hidden among rocks, lights flickered. The raider camp. Makeshift walls of scrap metal surrounded crates and fuel tanks. Armed figures moved about, unaware of the squad watching from above. The soldiers spread out, preparing to strike. Rin knelt beside Arun, pointing toward a cluster of power generators inside the camp. "We need those disabled. If their turrets remain active, we will be pinned down." Arun's throat tightened, but he nodded. I can do it. The squad slid down the rocky slope, moving like shadows. When the first guard spotted them, the silence broke. Energy bolts filled the air, and the battle began. Rin charged forward, her blade flashing with white light. Her squad followed, each movement sharp and practiced. Arun stayed low, rushing toward the generators as planned. He reached the machines and ducked behind them as sparks flew overhead. His hands trembled, but he forced himself to focus. He opened the panels, pulling out wires and bypassing circuits with tools he carried. The machines hummed, lights flickering as his adjustments cut their power. One by one the turrets fell silent. Rin's voice came through his communicator. Good work. Keep down. Arun looked up just in time to see her cutting through a line of raiders, her armor glowing faintly in the firelight. She moved like a storm, each strike precise, each block unshaken. For a moment, he felt awe. She seemed untouchable, yet he knew how much the armor bore the marks of past battles. He remembered every dent he had polished, every scar he had mended. A sudden shout pulled him back. A raider had slipped around the fight and spotted him crouched by the generators. The enemy raised his weapon. Arun froze, his body stiff with fear. He had no weapon, no armor, nothing. Before the shot could fire, Rin was there. She moved between them, her blade flashing, striking the raider down with one swift motion. She turned to Arun, her eyes sharp behind the visor of her helmet. I told you to stay close. I had to finish, Arun said, his voice shaking. For a heartbeat she almost scolded him, but instead she only nodded once and returned to the fight. The battle dragged on, but with the turrets down and the squad pressing hard, the raiders began to scatter. One by one they fell or fled into the dark canyon. The camp burned, crates exploding as fuel tanks ignited. At last, silence returned, broken only by the crackle of fire and the labored breaths of the soldiers. Rin removed her helmet, her golden eyes scanning the wreckage. The squad gathered, wounded but alive. Arun stood among them, his chest still pounding. He had grease on his hands, dust on his face, and fear in his heart, but also a strange sense of strength. Rin approached him slowly. You are not a soldier, she said. No, Arun replied. But tonight, you carried weight as if you were. He lowered his gaze. I only kept the machines from working against us. She studied him for a long moment. You see your actions as small, but they saved lives. Do you still believe every life is precious, even after seeing death so near? Arun lifted his head, meeting her eyes. Yes. More than ever. Rin's expression softened, though only slightly. The firelight flickered against her armor, and for the first time she felt something strange stir inside her chest, a quiet warmth she could not name. She turned to lead her squad back to the outpost, but the question echoed again in her mind, louder than before. Why does he treat me as if I am precious? The canyon closed behind them as they marched through the night, yet the memory of the battle and the bond it had forged would not fade. The canyon mission became a story repeated across the outpost for many days. Workers spoke of the fire that lit up the sky, the noise of explosions rolling through the stone cliffs, and how the squad returned victorious. Most of all, they spoke of how a quiet technician had walked beside armored warriors and returned alive. Arun tried to avoid such talk. He disliked attention, but no matter where he went, whispers followed. Rin did not join in the talk. She carried herself as always, disciplined and silent, yet inside her thoughts were not the same as before. Every time she looked at Arun she remembered him crouched by the generators, working with steady hands while chaos burned around him. She remembered stepping between him and a raider's weapon, and the relief she had felt when he was safe. She told herself it was only her duty to protect a member of her squad, yet the feeling lingered in ways she could not explain. One evening, long after most of the outpost had gone quiet, Arun stayed in the repair bay to finish patching damaged cables. His small lamp cast soft light across his workbench. The hum of machines filled the silence. He was tired, but he found peace in careful work. When the last bolt was tightened, he wiped his hands and leaned back, letting out a long breath. The door slid open, and Rin entered. She was not in full armor this time, only wearing a light uniform with the silver crest of her rank. Even without armor she seemed tall and strong, her golden eyes glowing faintly in the dim light. "You are here late," she said. Arun gave a small nod. "The cables had to be fixed before morning. The water filters will fail without them." She stepped closer, her gaze moving over the tools and spare parts scattered across the bench. "You never rest when others do." Arun smiled faintly. "Machines do not rest. If we want them to keep us alive, someone must care for them without pause." Her eyes lingered on his face. "It is the same with soldiers. We fight while others sleep. Yet the way you speak of machines, it is as though they are more than tools to you." Arun shrugged. "They serve life. That makes them worth attention." Rin was silent for a moment. She sat down on the edge of a crate, her movements slower than usual. The firelight from the lamp glinted on her hair. "I have fought many battles," she said at last. "I have seen soldiers fall beside me, and I have seen enemies break under my blade. In all those years, no one has spoken to me the way you do. No one has treated me as you treat even simple armor." Arun lowered his eyes. "Maybe that is because they see only a warrior. I see someone who carries weight heavier than most." Her brow furrowed. "You speak as if I am fragile." "I am not." "I know," he said softly. "But strength also needs care. Even stone breaks if it is struck long enough. Even iron rusts if it is left alone. That is why I treat your armor with care. And why I treat you the same." Rin looked away, her chest rising and falling as though his words unsettled her. Among her people, soldiers were praised for strength, not for being cared for. To be called precious, to be told she mattered beyond her role as a fighter, was something she had never known. She did not know how to answer. For a long time they sat in silence, the hum of machines the only sound between them. Arun returned to polishing a small panel, his hands moving slowly. Rin watched him, her mind restless. She realized she did not come here only to speak. She came because his presence brought a calm she rarely felt. At last she asked, "Do you not fear me?" Arun looked at her with calm eyes. "No. Why should I?" "Because I am not like you," she said. "I am taller, stronger, sharper. Many humans avoid me, even when I do not wish it." Arun gave a small smile. "You are different, yes. But that does not make you frightening to me. I do not judge by size or strength. I see how you fight to protect others. I see how you lead. That is what matters." Her golden eyes softened, though only slightly. No one had ever spoken to her this way. Among her people she was respected, but respect was born of fear and rank. This human did not fear her. He spoke with plain truth, and that truth warmed her in a way she could not explain. Before she could say more, the intercom crackled with the commander's voice. "All squads report for inspection at dawn. Repairs must be complete by morning." Rin rose from the crate, her expression returning to its steady form. "Duty calls again," she said. Arun nodded. "It always does." She walked to the door, then paused. "Arun." "Yes. You may not realize it, but you change things. You make people see differently." He tilted his head. "I only do what feels right." She gave a slow nod, her golden eyes lingering on him one last time before she stepped into the corridor and was gone. Arun sat alone again, staring at the tools in his hands. He felt no pride, no triumph, only a quiet weight in his chest. He had not tried to change her. He had only spoken as he always did. Yet something was shifting between them, something he could not yet name. In her quarters, Rin sat in silence long after her squad had gone to rest. She set her helmet on the table and traced the polished surface with her hand. She remembered his words, each one ringing clearer than the clash of blades. She had always thought strength meant being unbreakable, untouchable. But now she wondered if true strength was something else, something quieter. That night, she did not dream of battlefields or victories. She dreamed of a quiet room, a lamp's soft light, and a human's gentle hands repairing broken things as if they were treasures. The bond between them was not spoken aloud, yet it was there, growing like a flame hidden inside stone. Neither of them knew where it would lead, but both felt its warmth. The days after the Kenyan mission moved quickly. The outpost worked harder than ever, preparing for the next wave of battles. Supplies were brought in, defenses reinforced, and soldiers trained in the open yards until the ground shook with their drills. Yet even in the noise of preparation, a quiet understanding had begun to form between Arun and Rin. Rin still carried herself with the strength of a commander, but when she passed through the repair bay, her eyes always lingered on Arun. He, in turn, never looked at her as a distant warrior. He looked at her as someone who carried burdens too heavy for any one person. Though neither spoke of it, both felt the unspoken bond that grew in the silence between words. The bond was tested sooner than either expected. One cold morning the alarm sirens rang again. This time it was not raider scouts but a full assault. A fleet of enemy ships descended from the dark sky, sending fire across the outpost's shield. The ground shook, and walls cracked under the force of impact. Soldiers rushed to the gates while workers fled to shelters. Arun grabbed his pack of tools and ran toward the defense lines. He knew Rin would be there. He knew she would stand at the front as always, and he could not stay behind while the machines she depended on risked failure. When he reached the battlefield, chaos swallowed him. The shield flickered under bombardment. Turrets roared as they returned fire, and squads of soldiers met raiders who broke through the gates. Rin stood in the center, silver lines of her armor glowing as she fought. Her blade cut through wave after wave, her body moving with strength that seemed endless. Arun's heart pounded as he watched her stand against impossible odds. But then it happened. A blast from a raider cannon struck her square in the chest. The shield plates cracked with a loud snap, sending sparks across the ground. Rin staggered, her breath caught, and for the first time her movements slowed. She fought to stay standing, but another strike sent her crashing to the ground. Arun's breath froze. Without thinking, he ran toward her, weaving through soldiers and fire. He dropped beside her and saw the damage. The armor had split open across the chest plate, the metal bent inward, leaving her body exposed. Beneath the cracked layers, blood ran across the edge of the armor. "Stay still," Arun said quickly, though his voice shook. His hands reached for the pack of tools. He had no training for wounds, but he knew armor. If he could seal it, maybe he could give her more time. Rin's golden eyes looked at him through her helmet visor. Her voice was weak but steady. "You should not be here." "I will not leave you," Arun answered firmly. "Not when I can help." He worked fast, pulling small plates from his pack and welding them across the broken chest piece. Sparks flew, burning his gloves, but he did not stop. He layered the seals, pressing the edges together until the armor held tight again. His hands shook, sweat stung his eyes, yet his focus was unbroken. Rin's breathing steadied slightly as the armor closed around her again. She watched him, her vision blurred by pain, but her mind clear enough to understand what she was seeing. This fragile human, with no armor and no weapon, was standing between her and death. He had no reason to stay, yet he stayed. "Why," she whispered, her voice strained, "why do you treat me like this, like I am precious?" Arun looked up, his eyes fierce despite his fear. Because you are, he said. Because no life is ordinary. Not yours, not anyone's. If I can keep you alive, even for one more moment, then it matters. The words struck her deeper than the blast had. Her people spoke of honor, of victory, of sacrifice, but not of being precious. No one had ever spoken those words to her, not in all her years of battle. For the first time she felt more than duty. She felt seen. The battle raged around them, but Arun did not waver. He dragged her behind a fallen wall for cover, then checked the seals again. The cracks were closed, though not perfect. You cannot fight like this, he said. She shook her head. I must. My squad needs me. Then I will help you stand, he said, slipping his arm under hers. With his support, she rose slowly to her feet. Pain crossed her face, but her eyes burned with determination. Together they stepped back toward the line. Soldiers stared in disbelief as the towering warrior and the fragile technician moved side by side. Rin lifted her blade once more, her strength renewed not by armor but by the human who refused to abandon her. The raiders pressed forward, but the squad rallied around Rin. Arun worked where he could, rushing between power cells and turrets, keeping machines alive while soldiers held the line. Every time he looked at her, she was still standing, still fighting. And every time she looked at him, she felt a new kind of strength she had never known before. At last the enemy faltered. With their camp destroyed and their weapons failing, the raiders retreated into the sky, leaving wreckage behind. The outpost cheered, though the cheers were broken by exhaustion and grief for those who had fallen. Rin lowered her blade, her chest heaving with effort. Arun rushed to her side, supporting her before she could stumble. You should rest, he said. She gave a faint smile, rare and small, but real. Perhaps I should. But not before I tell you something. Arun looked at her in confusion. What is it? Her golden eyes softened, their glow gentle instead of sharp. Among my kind, we are taught that strength means to fight without weakness, to die without fear. But today I learned something else. Strength can also be in those who refuse to give up on another. You showed me that. Arun's throat tightened, but he managed to nod. Then I am glad. She reached out, placing her armored hand lightly on his shoulder. You see worth where others see none. That is a gift. It may be the reason your people survive even when you are fragile. For a moment they stood there in silence, surrounded by fire and smoke, but it felt like the world had gone quiet. In that moment both understood that something had changed between them forever. The battle was over, but the revelation remained. For Rin, it was the first time she believed that she was more than a weapon. For Arun, it was the moment he realized his simple care had touched the heart of someone who had never known such care before. The war would continue, and many more battles lay ahead, but neither of them would forget that moment when a soldier asked why she was treated as precious, and a human gave the only answer he knew, because she was. The outpost had settled into a cautious calm. Soldiers repaired their armor and weapons, workers cleaned debris, and commanders planned the next mission. Yet beneath the order and routine, something had shifted. Rin's eyes followed Arun whenever he moved through the halls. She noticed the way his hands worked steadily on machines, the way his calmness never faltered, and the way he seemed to carry more courage than anyone expected. Arun, for his part, stayed focused on his tasks. He had no desire for praise. To him, machines were life-saving tools, and people depended on them. But he could not ignore the glances from Rin, the way she lingered near the repair bay, the small gestures that betrayed curiosity and respect. He continued his work as always, polishing, repairing, and checking each machine as if each one mattered as much as a life. Days passed without incident, but the outpost commander gathered the squad again. Intelligence had reported a new raider fleet forming in the outer asteroid belt. If left unchecked, it could attack the colonies, and the outpost would be overwhelmed. Rin and her squad were to lead a strike team to disable the fleet before it became a threat. Arun would accompany them to maintain power systems, communication arrays, and repair vital machinery. The squad prepared, checking weapons, armor, and supplies. Arun strapped his pack of tools securely across his shoulders. Though he carried no weapon, the weight of responsibility felt heavy. He knew the soldiers depended on his skills, just as they depended on their own strength. Before departure, Rin approached him. "Tonight, the mission will test us in ways beyond strength," she said, her golden eyes serious. "Stay close. Follow my lead. And do not take unnecessary risks." Arun nodded. "I will do what I can. I know enough to keep the machines alive, and I will not let them fail." She studied him for a moment, then nodded in approval. "Good. Remember, courage is not the absence of fear. It is acting despite it." The team launched in small shuttles toward the outer belt. The journey through the void was quiet except for the hum of engines and the occasional chatter of soldiers checking equipment. Arun watched the stars streak past the viewport. The emptiness of space made him aware of the fragility of life, of the thin line between survival and disaster. When they reached the fleet, they saw dozens of raider ships moving among the asteroids, their engines glowing red against the black of space. Rin's squad spread into formation, targeting key ships that could lead attacks on nearby colonies. Arun moved carefully among their support craft, preparing power lines and shields to ensure no system failed during the engagement. The battle began with sudden intensity. Energy beams tore through space, and shields flared under fire. Ships shook under impact, and alarms blared in the support vessels. Rin's squad struck hard, disabling several raiders before they could react. Yet the fight was far from over. One of the raider ships broke formation and aimed a concentrated blast at the squad's main support vessel. Arun's heart raced as he realized the shields would not hold long enough. He rushed through the narrow corridors, connecting extra power cells, rerouting energy from auxiliary generators, and keeping the shields up. Sparks flew, and panels hummed under the strain, but he did not falter. From the viewport, Rin noticed his movement. Her golden eyes widened slightly as she saw the technician maneuvering among the machinery under fire, risking everything to maintain the defense. For her squad, Arun's courage was a revelation. The human was small, unarmed, yet he carried the weight of the mission as if it were his own life. Suddenly, a nearby raider ship managed to bypass the squad's formation. It aimed directly for Rin's ship, and its weapons discharged a powerful beam. The shields flickered dangerously. Without hesitation, Arun grabbed the nearest control panel and manually redirected power to reinforce the shields. Sparks flew across the floor, and a warning light blared, but the shield held. Rin's eyes met his through the viewport, and she gave a subtle nod. He understood immediately and kept working, adjusting every available resource to keep the team alive. The squad rallied, pressing forward, disabling the raider ships one by one. Arun moved tirelessly, keeping every system functional despite exhaustion and fear. Hours passed in the black silence of space, punctuated by the flash of energy blasts and the roar of engines. Finally, the raider fleet began to retreat. Their ships limped away among the asteroids, leaving behind wreckage and silence. The squad cheered, though weariness weighed heavily on their bodies. After the battle, Rin approached Arun. Her armor was scorched, her movements slower than usual, yet her gaze was steady. "You are not a soldier," she said softly, her golden eyes locking onto his. "No," Arun admitted. "But I did what I could." She studied him for a long moment, then spoke. "Do you understand what you just did? You saved lives that day, not with a weapon, not with strength, but with your care and determination. You carried more weight than most soldiers would dare to carry." Arun shook his head. "I did not think of myself. I only did what needed to be done. Rin stepped closer, her voice lowering. That is what makes humans remarkable. You are fragile in body, yet your spirit is unbroken. You see value where others see risk. That is why I respect you. That is why you are precious. Arun's cheeks warmed slightly, and he looked away, unsure how to respond. He had never expected such words from a towering warrior who had fought countless battles. His hands, though still stained with grease and dust, felt steadier now, as if her acknowledgement had strengthened him. For Rin, the battle had changed something inside her. She realized that strength was not only about fighting or winning. True strength could be quiet, patient, and careful. It could be the courage to act for others without expectation. Arun had shown her that, and in doing so, he had shifted the way she saw herself and the world around her. The journey back to the outpost was quiet. Soldiers slept, machines hummed, and the stars stretched endlessly outside the shuttles. Arun worked steadily, checking systems and ensuring everything was functioning. Rin sat across from him, her eyes distant as she reflected on the events. For the first time in her life, she felt that someone had truly seen her not as a weapon, not as a soldier, but as a being worth care and protection. When they landed, the outpost welcomed them with cheers, but Rin and Arun moved past the crowd. They walked in silence to the repair bay, side by side. No words were spoken, yet each knew the bond between them had deepened. Arun would continue his work, and Rin would continue her leadership, but now there was understanding, trust, and respect that went beyond orders or duty. The turning point was clear: battles could be won with strength, skill, and courage, but the smallest acts of care could change the hearts of even the strongest warriors. And that was what Arun had done. Weeks passed after the Outer Belt battle. The outpost slowly returned to routine. Repairs were complete, machines hummed efficiently, and soldiers trained in preparation for future conflicts. Yet the memory of the last battle remained alive in the minds of all who had seen it. Arun continued his work quietly, fixing machines, maintaining power grids, and checking systems. He avoided attention, as always, focusing on the value of each task rather than recognition. Rin, however, could not ignore him. Every time she passed the repair bay, her gaze lingered on him. His calm presence, his steady hands, and the courage he displayed in the face of danger stayed with her. She found herself seeking moments where she could speak to him alone, to understand more about the human who had changed the way she viewed strength. One evening, after the sun of the Red Star dipped below the horizon, Rin found Arun alone in the repair bay, polishing a set of armor plates. The glow of the overhead lights reflected on his focused expression, highlighting the quiet dedication he poured into even the simplest task. "You work late again," she said softly, stepping closer. Arun looked up, giving a small, polite smile. The armor needed attention. Even the smallest dents can affect performance. Rin nodded, studying him closely. "You always care for what others overlook. Even after everything, you have not changed." Arun shrugged lightly. "It is not about recognition. It is about life. Machines protect people. People protect others. If I can help even a little, then it is worth the effort." Her golden eyes softened. "It is more than effort. It is courage. You risked yourself countless times, not with weapons, but with care. That is something even the strongest warriors may never do." Arun looked away, modest yet thoughtful. "I only do what I feel is right. I do not see it as courage." Rin stepped closer, placing her armored hand on the edge of the bench. "Perhaps not, but your actions speak louder than words. You make people see value in the smallest things, in life, and in each other. That is your gift." For a long moment, they simply stood there, the hum of machines and the soft glow of the repair bay filling the space. Both understood without speaking that their bond had grown deeper than before. It was not built on orders or duty, but on trust, courage, and mutual respect. The next morning, the commander called a meeting with all personnel. News had arrived that the raider fleet, though weakened, had begun forming alliances with other hostile groups in nearby sectors. The outpost's role was becoming more crucial than ever. New strategies were discussed, and Ren's squad was assigned to train younger soldiers for upcoming missions. Arun was asked to oversee equipment maintenance and engineer training, his skill and calm judgment recognized as vital to the outpost's survival. As the days passed, Arun began instructing the younger engineers. He moved among them patiently, demonstrating how to handle delicate machinery, maintain shields, and manage energy cells. He spoke with calm authority, never raising his voice, and always showing that even the smallest actions mattered. Ren watched him from a distance, her golden eyes reflecting quiet admiration. She had seen countless soldiers rise and fall in battle, but she had never seen someone inspire others with quiet care and steady hands. The young engineers began to mirror his approach, understanding that life and machines were intertwined, that care could save more lives than brute force alone. One afternoon, Ren approached him during a break. The twin suns of the Red Star cast long shadows across the repair bay. She leaned against a table, her armor off except for her shoulder guards, and looked at him seriously. "Arun," she said softly, "do you realize what you have done here? Not just in battle, but now, with the engineers." He looked up, blinking in surprise. "I am only teaching what I know." She shook her head. "It is more than that. You have shown them that every life, every tool, every action has value. You have created a legacy here without realizing it." Arun's chest warmed at her words, though he kept his modest demeanor. "I only hope it helps," he said quietly. Ren smiled faintly. "It will. And it has changed me as well. I have learned that strength is not only in skill or armor, but in care, courage, and persistence. You have reminded me of something I had forgotten, that every life matters." Arun paused, then looked at her. "I never expected to teach you anything. You are one of the strongest people I have ever met." Her golden eyes softened further, and for the first time she allowed herself a small smile. "Strength is not only about what you can fight against, but also about what you can protect. You have taught me that." The bond between them grew stronger each day. Arun continued his quiet work, and Ren led her squad with renewed perspective, blending discipline with understanding. Their teamwork became seamless, the quiet human and the towering warrior complementing each other in ways no one else could. Months later, as the outpost stood secure and ready for future challenges, a ceremony was held to honor the courage and contributions of all personnel. Arun received a simple commendation for bravery, his actions recognized by the commander. Ren watched from the platform, her golden eyes glinting with pride. After the ceremony, the two met in the repair bay once more. The hum of machines was familiar and comforting, a reminder of all they had been through. Ren extended her hand, and Arun shook it firmly. "You changed everything," she said simply. "Not with weapons, but with care. That is a lesson I will carry with me for the rest of my life." Arun smiled faintly. "I only did what I thought was right. You make it easy to see why it matters." They stood there together, two figures shaped by war, courage, and care. One was a warrior, strong and unyielding, and the other a simple technician, humble but steadfast. Each had taught the other something invaluable, that life, trust, and careful attention could create bonds stronger than any weapon or armor. The legacy they left behind was not measured in victories or medals, but in the quiet lessons of courage, respect, and the value of every life. Soldiers and engineers alike would carry those lessons into the battles ahead, shaping the future with the same principles that had bound Arun and Ren together. In the quiet of the repair bay, surrounded by polished armor and humming machines, both of them knew that something had begun that would last far beyond any battle. A bond built on respect, courage, and care was stronger than steel, more enduring than victory, and more precious than life itself.